Hogstye.
Good day, Hogstyers out there. Summer season is upon us. Things are warming up, and things are starting to warm up in the Redskins world as training camp is finally looking almost normal. Coaches are starting to show up. Players are starting to show up in Ashburn. We have a lot to talk about with the offseason starting to get underway. This is Alex Zeese with you, and with me, of course, I got Steve and Jamal. Guys, how you doing? Thanks for putting this off for a day because I had to drive up to my place in New York, and so it screwed up our schedule.
Well, and I inadvertently published the incorrect time of recording, so I also appreciate you guys tolerating that. But no, I'm doing fine down here in Texas. It's a sunny day. I have no problems. I have no problems, but no new problems.
I'm a morning person anyway, so this kind of works out for me. Rather get this done out the way early.
I think we're all morning people technically. The problem we used to have, and this is no disrespect to our old friend Sean Conti, he did not want to wake up before noon. And he was also out west, and that always threw a wrench into our schedules.
Yeah, he was in mountain time, so he was 2 hours behind us, and you guys an hour behind me, and he was not a morning person.
No. He was not a night person either. I think he really just was a sleep-friendly person.
Sleep-friendly.
I think when we initially talked about off-season times, he wanted to go with like 2 o'clock or something.
Yeah.
We were like, no, this is going to ruin the entire day.
That's the middle of the day for a Saturday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Middle of the day.
That means you can't go out and do anything in the morning or in the afternoon when you do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, well, we got a lot to talk about. I want to start with our poll because I think it leads us into a couple of our topics here. Because you did a poll on the training camp news that came out this week, Steve.
Yes. That was the polls on training camp. And some of you out there lack reading comprehension skills because I got a couple comments who pointed out exactly what I said in the poll. So for those of you who did that, go take a class or something. But most of you understood. So here's the poll question. With the end of the Redskins' contract with the city of Richmond and the NFL mandating 2020 training camp to be at each team's practice facility, the team has an opportunity to select a totally new site next year. Where do you want training camp to be located? The 4 choices I chose, and I'll tell you why I did this in a minute. And the 4 choices I put out there were Redskins Park, go back to Richmond, Frostburg, Maryland, or other. Now, I intentionally left out Carlisle, Pennsylvania, because it would have been like 100% to 0 if I had let Carlisle be a choice.
Sure.
Most likely. So those are the 4 choices are out there. So as we do every week.
Well, before you start, you might as well give us the reasonings, so we can have a little bit of context before we give our opinion.
Oh, okay. The truth of the matter is, training camp could be anywhere. They could hold it in, like Oregon if they wanted to. But,
like the Cowboys have held theirs in California forever.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that. And I'm also having a piece come out this week about a little column about this. But Redskins Park, that's evident. Obviously that's one of the
cheap,
choices.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Richmond, there's a training facility down there. They could go back there and cut a different deal with the city that works for the city and go back there. Frostburg, Maryland. It's in Maryland. It's easy. It's close. They've been there before. They could do that. There's probably money issues there. The other is I put other instead of Carlisle. Which is where, for those of you who don't know, the Redskins were in Carlisle forever, like 15 years, all throughout the golden era. But that's I wanted to give, since Twitter has a limitation of 4 choices, I wanted to give, an option for people to say whatever they want instead of just Carlisle. I left Carlisle out because everybody's going to pick that.
Well, all the old school fans, your generation, even people maybe my age, will think about Carlisle fondly. Yeah. I don't know if, like Jamal, you're about 10 years younger than me. I don't know if it has any kind of cachet for you for them to go back there.
Not necessarily. I'm aware of it, but nothing rings. It doesn't have anything for me.
It sounds like Dakota's.
Welcome Dakota to the show.
Yeah. She's over here playing with. She's over here playing with her little that ball, the squeaky ball, and she keeps bringing it over here with me. But not. I don't have anything for Carlisle, but I'm aware of it. I know what the Skins used to do back in the Gibbs days.
Well, what's your, just give, Jamal, why don't we just start with you then, since you're already thinking about it. What do you think about training camp, and what do you think the fans would vote for?
I'm personally fine with, I do. I mean, at one point they used to have it at Ashburn. I think, I don't know how long ago it was before they moved to Richmond, but they had it for a good period of time there. I'm fine with Ashburn, truth be told, and I don't need to say that for selfish. This is my personal opinion, and I'll give my vote. I mean, my prediction. But I'm fine with Ashburn because it's only it's under an hour drive for me, so I can go there as much as I can to cover the team. But the fans, I think they chose. Excuse me. I think they chose other. I do want to say that I am aware that there are a lot of fans in that Richmond area. So even though the turnout isn't great, or hasn't been great for a couple years, I know that there's a lot of people in Virginia that are Redskins fans now, or it's a heavy population. That's where the majority of the fans are coming from at the stadium. Is my assumption, but I think somewhere in Virginia is going to be the other. So yeah, that's my vote.
Okay,
it's other.
Alex?
I think fans are probably going to go. I'm with Jamal, probably other, because it just lets you pick so many options. I know for me personally, I really enjoyed going to training camps in Richmond. I'm probably the only person from what you see on social media and stuff.
You're not. ZZQ and Mama J's. That's the best thing I look forward to.
I mean, there's a lot of good food. And, it's fun to get down there, and I don't understand these people. I don't like going down. It's I think fans made the mistake, if they're from this area, where they're driving down to Richmond, not staying for a weekend, and then they're trying to drive back up right after camp, and that's torture. What you do is you go somewhere like that, go out, have a nice meal like ZZQ, which is probably some of the best barbecue you can find on the East Coast. Not saying much, but really good on East Coast barbecue. And then, you go hang out in the city. There's a lot of fun stuff to do in Richmond, but I think most fans just went down for a day, which is the mistake. But yeah, I'm not a fan of training camp being in Ashburn, just because I like the old school mentality of players have to get out of town for training camp, and build that cohesion. I know a lot of players say it doesn't matter, but I like that mentality.
If it were me voting, which I don't vote in our own polls, but
right.
If I did, I would have voted for Redskins Park. The fans agreed with me. By a vote of 62%, which frankly surprised me. Yeah, that surprised me. They voted for Redskins Park by a vote of 62%. Other was all the way back at 18%. That was second place. Frostburg, Maryland was 12%, and then Richmond was only 8%. I kind of think Richmond gets a little bit of a bad rap from the public for some weird reason. It's a fine city, I don't quite get why people don't like it, except they're just battle-scarred from having horrible teams come out of Richmond training camps, maybe. The city of Richmond didn't do well under that deal. They lost a ton of money. But
they lost a ton of money, and I mean, you and I have gone back and forth on this, and I agree with you. It's not the team's fault necessarily. The city of Richmond did not plan around that facility very well, and that's always been the big problem. Is you put it in an area you want to redevelop, but then you didn't put any effort into redeveloping around it.
There's that, and also the crowds just weren't as big as they hoped because the team sucked.
No, the crowds.
The team sucked. So,
the crowds were great the RG3 years. Yeah, the crowds were amazing.
But beyond that, it's been a bad team, and people have lost interest. I mean, it's the same reason why people aren't going to the games, either. Right. If they're not going to the games, they're certainly not going to take a weekend and go to Richmond either.
Right.
So it's really less Richmond and more just the team has been bad. I think if you put the Patriots in Richmond, it would have been a packed house.
Well, didn't they play the Patriots in a practice down there?
2014.
I'm just making that up. I mean, put whatever team.
I know we know what you meant.
Yeah.
But that was the other thing about the Richmond deal that didn't work for the team. That was probably their big mistake on the team side, was that you couldn't do this whole visiting team practices as easily.
Well, that wasn't what it was. The deal was the teams could come to Richmond. The deal was that the Redskins...
They couldn't leave Richmond.
Yeah, that
Right.
was.
But-
It's because like we had the Texans that year, they got in a big fight on the field.
Right.
Normally you would go, then the Redskins would go to Houston for
The next year.
Yeah, and they couldn't do that. So
Right, and that made it harder for them to do that, and that's what I mean
Yeah.
is that's the thing that you want to have happen.
in terms of where I think training camp would be best. I'd like to throw this out to you guys. Personally, I'm not really a believer at the pro level that these guys really have to go out, like what was the Denzel Washington movie in the football movie?
Remember the Titans?
Yeah, like Remember the Titans style where they have to build camaraderie and all. These guys are pros. These aren't high school kids. These are professional athletes. They're adults. They have families. I don't really think it's all that necessary. They have to go away and bond or something. I think that's just not something that needs to be done at their level. So to me, from an ease of logistics, from a facility standpoint, all of it's a lot easier to do. It's a lot easier to do it at Redskins Park. The weight they already have the weight room and all that. That's at a pro level. It just makes a lot more sense from a team perspective to me to do it at Redskins Park. Now, if they really want to make people bond or whatever, you just put them in a hotel near Ashland.
Well, I think that's what they were doing in Richmond. Because that's what I think they was. Because I don't I'm trying to remember specifically, but I know there was something where they all were in a central location.
They all stayed in one of the nice hotels downtown.
So it was a hotel. Okay, yeah. I know
yeah.
they stayed in one central location. I just didn't know.
Yeah,
what
it's
it
not
was.
like they drove home. That would be insane.
Well, but I think, Jamal, aren't you talking about when they had it at Redskins Park before the Richmond deal? I think they were staying in a local Ashburn conference center or something.
I think so. I think you're right.
Oh yeah, I won't remember at that point. I was still young. I do remember them being in Ashburn because I had friends who used to go to the training camp practices and stuff like that.
I just
and
think
they used to
in today's
scrimmage the
world,
Ravens pretty often.
Yeah, I just think in today's world it's a little bit easy. It's the ease of logistics and the quality of the facilities. Because let's be honest, Dickinson College is what was up in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And Dickinson College is, I would assume, a D3 school, I guess. Do they really have facilities that are up to NFL level?
Probably not. But
yeah, I don't know. Maybe they do.
But you're talking about the 70s and 80s. NFL level meant something different.
I agree completely. I agree. But I'm talking about today. So if you want the nostalgia of going back up to Dickinson College, I don't think that really works in today's world, particularly unless the Redskins have given them a bunch of money to upgrade their facilities or whatever.
Right.
That's why I think Redskins Park is easier. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think when you're talking about a 28-year-old with a wife and a kid, does he really need to go bond with his, live in a shared room with someone else? I mean, I don't think that's really all that useful for pros. Again, maybe I'm wrong.
I'm about to say teams it's important to bond on every professional team or any competitive team. So I understand. Excuse me. I understand Alex's aspect, and perspective. I actually tend to lean that way personally. But they've been doing that in Richmond as well, and I'm sure wherever they'll go, they'll always be in a central location together. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to go and have that bonding experience because that type of thing is what brings people together on the field as well. It's on and off the field. It's 24/7 for that training camp period. However many days it is, I don't know how many days it is, but
2 weeks roughly.
2 weeks. So yeah, it's that small amount of time is pretty important. The thing about taking them away from the area is that you keep them together. Like you can still do things in Richmond, obviously as long as you're in by curfew, and you can still do things in Ashburn, obviously if you're in by curfew. But if you take them away, obviously they'll find things, but it's not going to be that to a significance because they're not in their a familiar environment. If that makes sense. That's my assumption.
Yeah, no, I hear you. We'd probably need to hear from a pro, who's been through this to see how valuable that is.
Well, you're going to get different perspectives from different types of pros too. I think on that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It'll just be more it'll be more detailed though, as far as
sure,
what we speak on. They'll know a little bit more.
In terms of comments, we didn't get a ton of comments. We did get some. The best one. This is like the home run comment ever. I love this. This is Gabrielle Wood at GCH Wood. He wrote Dallas, Texas. I thought that was the greatest answer.
I like that.
That would be
a little
great.
spite.
Yeah, oh yeah, that'd be awesome. The bulk of these comments most of them are advocating Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which isn't a surprise at all.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony YAH, who's at DB Big Oso, I think, says somewhere accessible to most in the DMV. And his point is, don't have it out in Iowa or somewhere where real Redskins fan can't go. And that makes some sense. Charlie Gaddy at CG101, Charlotte, North Carolina. At least a few seasons to show support to the fan base in North Carolina. Reasonable. That's a reasonable position to take.
Go ahead.
No,
Give me a thought. But
I'm not going to read all these because basically all the rest of them are Carlisle, for advocating Carlisle.
But I think that North Carolina one brings up a great point. What would be, I don't know about harm, but why not just every year or two you put it in Raleigh or Norfolk or Richmond, rotate it every couple years. That kind of thing might be interesting just for helping rebuild the fan base, because we know the fan base has been badly damaged the last decade.
I think the team is more concerned about the money than the fan base, if you ask me. I understand. Richmond was about money, not about the fans.
And it's always about money in the end. I understand that.
That's why the Cowboys go to California, because they're getting paid to do it.
But at the same time, you've seen that facility they've built out there. It's nicer than the Redskins, Ashburn.
Well, they have a much bigger. I hate to say it, but the truth is they have a much bigger fan base than the Redskins too.
Right.
Which is sad, but true.
But the Cowboys built a 10,000 person dome stadium out in California for them to practice in.
Yeah. What's funny is that the Carolina Panthers actually go to South Carolina every year. Mm-hmm. So they're not even in North Carolina. So the Redskins could probably move straight into Raleigh or somewhere like that if they really wanted to. I think it would take a perspective shift by the front office to make that happen. Yeah,
and I don't see that happening now.
It's a huge risk. You're going out there to try and bring in new fans, but the assumption is you're gonna get fans to come to the training camp. It's hard, man, because when you try to bring the product into a new area, knowing that you're already struggling at your normal location or your home base location, what are you really going to do in North Carolina, except for experience? You can probably, it's a new environment, but how many fans are you really going to get out there? How many people are really going to be attracted to coming to the Redskins training camp?
You know what they should do with the talk about RFK Stadium being demolished in the next year or two? They shouldn't have a whole training camp there, but they built a bunch of really nice soccer field type things over by where RFK is. Just have one or two scrimmages out there before RFK comes down. That would be nice to see.
They could do that. They do have practices out at Andrews Air Force Base every year. Training camp for a year. I think what's important is, Jamal kind of touched on this just a second ago. I think it's important to have training camp within a day's drive, an easy day trip out of the Washington, D.C. area. Because for what you exactly said, Jamal, it's North Carolina is not a day trip for most people. And
Richmond is probably the edge of a day trip for most
people. Some people don't want to spend money on a hotel, and that's fine, and I understand that. I probably wouldn't want to do it either. So you kind of have to have. You don't have to do anything, but it would be best if you had training camp somewhere within a day's drive. That's why I put Frostburg on the poll, because
Frostburg's not bad.
Yeah, that's within
Annapolis
a day's drive.
Wouldn't be bad.
Annapolis.
Yeah.
Of course, the problem with Annapolis is the Naval Academy is doing stuff all summer. You can't just move a whole football team into the Naval Academy. That's the problem.
Yeah. I realize. Yeah. You'd have to find a non-Naval Academy site out there. Or something.
Yeah, and where is that? Name that. So that Annapolis sounds good, but it's a problem.
But I think the point is, it would be fun for them to, and like I said, maybe you don't do a full training camp, but just have them go practice here for 2 days. Or,
who does that are the Packers and the Saints. Both do that.
Really?
Well, the Packers have some, they start off in one place and they go somewhere else. The Saints did that last year also. The Saints were in West Virginia for some unknown reason last year.
I think their owner, their owner owns some famous property out there.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So
there's
a reason.
I think that's why, yeah.
I think Dan Snyder's lost every property he's ever owned to bankruptcy and bad business
Pretty
deals.
much. So. I'm amazed his boat hasn't sunk yet.
That's true. Because, I mean, he's been a part of, film studios and restaurants and all, and it all goes, Six Flags, it all goes up in smoke.
Yeah, and that's not to say, like, I'm hoping it sinks. I don't hope it sinks. I'm just, like, that's his luck. It should have been caught in a hurricane by now.
He's being facetious, people.
Yes.
So I guess at the end of the day, to me, it makes the most sense to have it in Redskins Park. Why mess with it? That having been said, it's always about money, and if somebody drives a Brinks truck up to the Redskins, they're going to take it, and they're going to go somewhere else. Because it's not really it's all about income before convenience and what's best for the team.
Well, and, again, that's why I think if you're like, we'll just host a practice here, you could get cities to maybe kick some money in for that, or for advertising or whatever.
Now, in terms of what Ron Rivera wants, I don't think any of us really know. I went back and looked at the Panthers all the way back to their first season. They've been in the same spot in South Carolina ever since day one. It went way before Ron Rivera. So if he had a vote or he had a say, it never became public and they ignored him, or he just agreed with it. So I don't think we really know what Ron Rivera would really want from.
I mean, Ron Rivera is an old school football guy, so it wouldn't surprise me if he might have that "I like to get out" mentality.
Yeah.
Think of where his lineage is, football-wise.
The Bears.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on, because I think we've talked enough about this. But our next topic, brief one, does also have to do with Richmond, and that's some unfortunate news that Greg Stroman's cousin was killed in a hotel in Richmond. And so just our thoughts go out to him and his family, because, by the way, this is the hotel I always stay at when I'm down at training camp. So it's like, to be nice, it's a dive right off the highway. So
you want to say the name now that you said it was?
No. People can find it if they want. It's not hard to find because it's within a walk of training camp, and there aren't many. But I'm not surprised that someone would have been killed there. But that's just awful for Stroman.
Yeah, our thoughts
and
prayers for the Stroman family for sure on that one.
Yeah. All right, next topic, also camp-related-ish. The coaches are coming back in the building, guys. It's like football's going to start happening soon. Ron Rivera posted a video of himself walking in and starting to meet with people. He has a custom face mask with his logo on the front of it.
Of course.
Which our coach has a logo, guys, which is kind of weird. I don't know of any other coach who has a logo like Ron Rivera has a logo.
There's a story that I don't know what it is behind the Riverboat Ron thing.
Yeah. I don't know either.
Well, you're talking about like his brand, or you're just talking about his actual nickname?
No, the mask from the video. The video that Alex talking about is Ron Rivera in the entryway of Redskins Park, of the building at Redskins Park, and he's got on a Riverboat Ron face mask.
Yeah, no, right. I was saying, you're saying it's a story behind Riverboat Ron. I'm saying, are you talking about the nickname or the actual, just his branding thing? Like, where did the nickname come from?
Yeah, where did the nickname come from? Because I know there's a story.
Yeah, so basically, I don't know like how Riverboat came about, but I know the nickname started coming in when maybe it's Googleable too, like what Riverboat, what it really stands for. But basically, Ron Rivera, when he came in as the Carolina Panthers head coach, he had a tendency to always be aggressive in situations. He went for it on fourth down. He took his chances. He did the 2-point conversions, the onside kicks, all that type of stuff. And like I said, I don't know. It may be Googleable what Riverboat actually stands for, but they called him Riverboat Ron for that reason, because he took his chances, as many opportunities as he could, and it wasn't it wasn't an analytical thing. It was him just being aggressive in certain situations, like we're not going to punt, we're not going to kick the field goal, etc., all that type of stuff. So that's all. That's what, from what I remember, that's where the nickname came from.
Well, that kind of makes some sense.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna look it up. What does Riverboat mean?
Okay.
Well, riverboat would mean gambler,
Oh, all right, yeah. So
just
there you
in
go.
general.
Yeah. That's what they call them, riverboat Ron. That's all I was saying. I didn't know what river. I know it meant something behind it. So riverboat Ron.
Well, okay, so it's an old western, and I guess they still do them out in like Kansas and stuff. If you ever watch Ozark, they don't put casinos in buildings in some states. They only let you put them on riverboats.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's like in Biloxi, Mississippi. For those of you who are in the South, the gambling are actually on boats that are permanently affixed and aren't going anywhere, but they're technically floating on the water. Now, there's an old movie. I'm dating myself here, but there's an old who's the Lethal Weapon guy?
You're talking about the movie Maverick, based off the TV show Maverick.
Yeah. And who's the guy who's in that movie, Alex?
Mel Gibson.
Yeah, thank you. There's an old Mel Gibson movie called Maverick that the end of the movie takes place on a riverboat where they're gambling.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah,
it's an old timey thing.
That you're probably right, Jamal. That probably is it. It's somebody probably named him Riverboat at one time because he was a gambler in his play calling. Probably. We're assuming.
Yeah.
But the coaches are back. They should have been back a long time ago. I'm just glad that it happened now early. So now they've got 6 weeks, 7 weeks, so they can be in the facility and kind of get organized and not be on Zoom meetings all the time. That's a really good thing. They need to get the players in next as soon as possible.
I thought some of the players were in.
Some of them are injuries, but they need to be able to get them back in mass into the facility, get the weight room open. To everybody, all that stuff. In my view, it should have been done a long time ago, but at least it's been done now.
Yeah.
Because if you guys don't realize this, I mean, most of you do, but the coaches are in the facility year-round.
Traditionally, yes.
Even in June, some of the coaches are in the facility. So I would assume, because of everything that's gone on, they will probably be there every day up through training camp, would be my guess.
Yeah, and now they do usually get a couple weeks for a vacation after the end of the season, but generally
in June. It's usually now. But
right.
I just think, given the weird offseason we've had.
Yeah.
That's
it wasn't on our topic list, but you guys have seen Dwayne Haskins keeps on getting more little videos of his workouts posted, and I don't know about you.
About to refer to, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that deep pass he had to Sims, and he is looking better and better in these. And I know the videos, they're not going to show him throwing wide on anybody, but he's still looking good, man, in these practices that he's hosting.
See, I've been boycotting social media for a while, so I haven't seen too many of these videos.
Okay, so the one this week, it's Steve Sims, right, Jamal? It's not.
I actually don't know. I actually don't know who he was throwing to. I saw the play. I don't know who he was throwing to.
But he throws a 40-yard, perfect strike deep out to, I think it's Sims, and it looks like just a perfect pass going halfway down the field.
He's always been able to do that, though.
Yeah,
I mean, that's no different. He's looked like that last year too.
He's got great zip on it. It was a beautiful pass, and that's the point.
And I'm glad, but I don't think that's any different whatsoever. What I think the difference is with Haskins, you said it last week, Alex. He looks like he's in better shape. That's important.
Yeah, and by the way, he's doing it with no shirt on. Dude's got an 8-pack at this point. Whereas I think last year he had my beer belly more.
Hopefully it wasn't quite that bad.
No.
But I think the idea that Dwayne Haskins could hit a deep ball isn't any different.
But it was just the frozen rope type pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked good. I think what it was just I think this is the word. I think it was the aesthetics of the video. But basically it's just, it's him looking in shape. He continues to look like the guy that we understand him to be this offseason, losing the weight, cutting his body fat down, and he's throwing with his shirt off, and he's throwing a laser. So 40 yards down the field. So it's just all those type of things, and then people continue to be impressed by it, which is fine. But this is one of those, and I understand where Alex is coming from, but I also understand where Steve is coming from. These are one of those things where you see a clip in training camp, and you see somebody make a play against nothing, and then you're like, oh, such and such is looking good this year, and then they get 1,000 retweets and 1,000 interactions on Twitter, and that's what this type of video was. He's just throwing a pass. He just happened to also look good doing so in terms of how he's keeping his body in shape, and that's what people want to continue to see.
This is called the Terrell Pryor effect. For the
scientific name. There we go.
That's a great example.
Yeah,
because
we need to
Terrell Pryor. Yeah.
I think Dwayne Haskins is, generally speaking, got a lot of disrespect from the national media.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Yeah, right. And so to the extent that this helps, I'm all for it. You know, put out all the workout videos. I mean, I think that's cool. I just think if you've been paying attention, he could always do this. He looks like he's in better shape for sure, but he did this at Ohio State. You know, in terms of he's always been able to throw deep. It's just a matter of kind of putting it together on the field, and that's happened for him. That happened for him at the end of last year. I think he's going to be a lot better this year, I really do.
I think the real takeaway that I think a lot of people are overlooking, last year a lot of the criticism was he wasn't doing the quarterback things, and I say that in quotes. You know, the one instance where he wasn't looking over the shoulder when who was it was breaking down, the OC was breaking down a play with that was a sideline video of one of you remember
games.
that whole, and everyone just ripped him apart because he's sitting there like not paying attention.
People thought he was basically pouting instead of paying attention. Yeah,
exactly. But now we're seeing he's bringing his receivers down there to Florida to work out with them. He's lost all this weight. He's doing the quarterback things that the same stuff Tom Brady does.
He's also the undisputed starter this year too, which is better for him. I think that he has that mentality going into it. You know, he can prepare for it. I think it'll be. I think it'll be a lot better this year as long as everybody stays healthy. You know.
And hopefully a second receiver really steps up to be another potential 1,000-yard guy. Yeah, whoever. I don't care who it is. We need more than one guy. Yeah.
Give us 700 yards from wide receiver number 2, and I think we're in good shape. At least 700, excuse me.
Yeah. I'll push it to 750, Jamal. I'm going to expect that much.
I'm going to go to 762.
Whoa!
Well, shoot. Let's just do 900 then.
900.
Well, you got to get Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin's got to be a 1,000-yard receiver, right?
Yeah.
You have to think that. So, you have a second receiver that's in the 700-yard range, and then, you've got a much bigger production from the running backs in the passing game. I mean, he could have a much bigger year. I just basically, my whole goal is for him to prove Chris Sims wrong.
Yeah.
My goal.
Yeah. Well, Chris Sims proved a lot of Chris Sims wrong in his life.
He proved himself wrong.
Yeah. Okay, well, guys, let's move on to our position group breakdown because we're about halfway through the show. This week we're doing offensive tackles, which is going to be fun because none of us really know we all know we're not O-line experts. I'll put it that way. So let's start with that as the premise for us breaking down all these offensive tackles. But we got to get through these guys. Do you want to do the depth guys and then get into the starters? Because I feel like the depth guys are quick.
Okay. Well, first of all, here's the group. Paul Adams, Sadiq Charles, Jaron Christian, Cornelius Lucas, Morgan Moses, Timon Paris, Jeremy Vuvinovic. I guess how to pronounce it. Even Jamal's laughing at me. Vujnovic, maybe? Forgive me, Jeremy, for butchering your name.
We're going to just call him Jeremy V. How about that?
Now we're leaving out a couple guys who, if an emergency, could probably move over. Like you could probably throw Brandon Scherf out there. I'm talking about just like the dedicated tackles. That's the group.
Right. Well, and even the last guy you mentioned, Jeremy Vuvinovic, however we're pronouncing it. Like I kind of view him as like he's just a lineman. Let's designate him a tackle.
He's a guy. I had to put him somewhere on my chart, and so he's
right.
How many people did you name, Steve?
7.
7. There's probably about 4 people worth talking about.
Right. So let's go through.
We'll start with
Vuvinovic. Paul Adams. He's in his second season. He just came over here this year. Was he the one that we signed to the the surprisingly large contract, or was that Lucas?
He's got a 2-year deal worth $1.39 million, which is basically in salaries.
Yeah,
for
but 2 years is kind of
he's 6'6", 317, undrafted free agent out of Missouri, second year pro. I've never watched a single moment
I don't think there's a lot to watch on him.
of Paul Adams ever.
Right.
So I don't know what I could possibly say about him, other than he's a young guy. He's got a shot.
Right.
With this group, you got a shot.
I mean, the one thing I'll say about all these back-end guys, they're all young. I mean, you get to Tim Paris, who's been here for 2 years, and you and I were talking before the show, Steve. I feel like we keep on releasing him and bringing him back, releasing him and bringing him back. He's been on a practice squad off and on. He's only been in the league since 2018, so young guy, depth signing, I don't know. Did he get some playing time last year? I think he did.
Yeah, he did.
I think he got a little playing time.
Well,
and he
I've
was
heard
okay.
that Ron Rivera likes him. I heard that Ron Rivera likes Tim and Paris. He's a guy, you're right. He's kind of the guy who's been hanging around seemingly forever, but it's only been 2 years.
Right.
Tim and Paris is 6'6", 312, undrafted free agent out of Stony Brook.
Right. Small school.
Yeah, small school guy.
Yeah.
I think he's, of all these back end guys, I think he's got the best shot. Because I've heard that Ron likes him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last guy on that back end to talk about is Lucas, who came over here from the Bears. I think this is his second or third season. He had some starting. No.
Lucas is a 2014 undrafted free agent out of Kansas
2014.
State.
Oh wow. Okay.
He's also huge. He's 6'8". So he's a really big guy. That also means he's probably just a tackle. He's probably not all that versatile. Lucas is the guy that you might see starting. You might see him starting here at left tackle, depending on Sadiq Charles, how his development is going.
Although Lucas only played right tackle last year, from what I found.
Listen, beggars can't be choosers, man. I mean,
That's
Trent
fair.
Williams is gone.
Okay, well. That takes us to that goes to those guys real quick because we don't have much to say about them, right?
Cornelius Lucas is a dude who has he's only been basically right tackle. I think you have a scenario out there wherein if the team really wanted to make a bold move and Sadiq Charles is ready, you could actually see Lucas starting for Morgan Moses. That would be like the, oh my God, the OMG move would be that.
Right.
It just really, to me, this whole group hangs on Sadiq Charles. Everything hangs on Sadiq Charles.
Yeah, so let's get into him because I think he's the biggest, topic here. It's Sadiq Charles. A lot of people projected him as, he's a guy who can start. When we talk to guys like Robbie talking about the draft, he really liked Charles because he said that it was a very deep tackle class to begin with. So he said you're going to find starters in the second and third round. Charles dropped to us kind of, by luck because he had some off the field issues that hopefully they can get those squared away now that he's a pro. But
his off the field issues were failed drug tests, by the way.
Right. Just hey, don't smoke weed. There, done. Move on. Sadiq Charles could be a starter. He's not the mauler Trent Williams was, as we've talked about when he got drafted. He's more of a technique guy, it looks like, but strong, and he has the prototypical size. It looks like
he's got shorter arms. You see a lot of fans criticizing this. First of all, his arms aren't that short. I think his arms are 32 and a quarter or something like that. Mm-hmm. His arms are about the length of Joe Thomas's, okay? It's not automatically disqualifying. It just means he's going to have a slightly different technique. His arms aren't like Tyrannosaurus Rex arms, okay? They are a bit shorter than you would probably want. It's not that big a deal as long as he has solid technique. That's, again, we're not O-line experts, but that's my understanding of Sadiq Charles. I think that he's a guy, absent his off-the-field discretions, which are basically immature. When it comes down to it, it's immaturity. Because we can have the drug debate later, but the fact of the matter is it was against the NCAA rules, and you knew it, you broke it.
It's not like he went to a party and held up everybody and got away in a Lamborghini.
Yeah, such as, for example. Imagine that. And that's just when you get, again, without getting into a drug discussion, when you repeatedly violate the rules that are obvious and open, everybody knows about it, it means you're immature. And so it just begs the question of, is Sadiq Charles going to be ready from moment one to start if you have a guy like that? That's the bigger question to me is that.
Oh, man, you hope so. Because, I mean, anytime don't matter when they drafted you, but anytime somebody drafts you, that's an investment that team's willing to make, and you understand the opportunities that he was given at LSU, and you wonder, obviously for you to get the opportunities at LSU, and you're still able to start as many times as you had, that kind of shows your talent ability, but it also shows if you were replaceable, would they replace you? And that in the NFL, that's something that's actually a legitimate thing. There's so much talent in the NFL. Can Sadiq really, if he hasn't, we don't know him. If he hasn't improved on his maturity and his own personal accountability, he can be replaced very easily. Unless he turns out to be a Hall of Fame talent, and I'm not putting that pressure on him, then it'll be hard to replace him. They'll have to tolerate him, just like Josh Gordon got so many chances. Truth be told, Trent Williams in a sense. But when you have that type of talent, then it's going to be hard to replace you. But Sadiq, he's a rookie. He's coming in with immaturity issues and accountability, personal accountability. Obviously being able to stay responsible and not do drugs. That's illegal drugs or illegal substances. You got to hope that he's able to maintain and be responsible as a pro. And we don't know if that's going to work out.
That's
for him
the $1 million question. I mean, literally $1 million question. Do you guys know how hard it is to get suspended at LSU? you know? I mean, LSU is willing to tolerate almost anything, and to get suspended there really begs the question.
Almost any SEC school, frankly, that's probably...
absolutely. But especially
except
LSU.
for maybe Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's the only one who maybe cares, and that's why they're always terrible.
LSU, man, I mean, they'll put up with anything.
Right.
Tyrann Lue was, at the time... not Tyrann Lue. He's a basketball player. The safety who was with the Cardinals...
Tyrann Mathieu?
Thank you. Tyrann Mathieu
was,
at the time, addicted to drugs. And they tolerated him forever, before they finally got rid of him. I mean, it just really begs the question. I hope he succeeds. And we've had Robbie and Mark Tyler both like him. We had both of them on the show saying, he can play. So I take their word for it. But it's, I just hope that he's learned his lesson and now comes in ready and willing to go, because it would make everything so much easier if he's ready to start. It really would.
Right. All right. I don't think there's anything else I can say about that. So let's move on to the next guy, and that is, I'm going to go with Jaron Christian, who is, the fans' favorite whipping boy when it comes to this line. I understand his technique is bad, but when he had to fill in last year, I thought he at least didn't completely, S the bed. I know he's sloppy, but... he didn't just give up sack after sack after sack that like some people we've seen come in as backups. And I wonder, personally, can you develop a guy like this still? He's still young. It's only his third season, right?
2018,
yeah. Because we all know Moses is, long in the tooth at this point and, been playing hurt for years, so he's probably in the back part of his career at best. So, can they develop Jaron Christian along with Sadiq Charles to be an option at right tackle maybe in the future?
I have a hard time calling any player who's not a first-round pick a bust because the expectations are so low from an odds perspective. But Jaron Christian is as close to bust as you can get out of a third-rounder, in my view. I mean, do you really want Jaron Christian protecting the blind side of your second-year, highly valuable quarterback? Would that
not for the full season? No.
No, I mean, he hasn't lived up to the starter potential. That having been said, like I said many times, the odds are he never was because he's a third-round pick, and the odds are against you. I know what you're saying, Alex. He wasn't maybe completely terrible when he was in there playing, but I don't think at this point we can reasonably expect him to be a starter.
Well, actually, you know what? I'm not even going to add to that. I agree. I was thinking.
We're on a show, Jamal. Please add to it.
I 100% agree with that. And I feel like, what's crazy? I know we'll get there, but I feel like Morgan Moses and Jerron are kind of in the same boat. But obviously we know Jerron is in a different starting point. He's much like all right, put it this way: 2014 Morgan Moses is what Jerron Christian has been throughout his entire career. Obviously, Morgan Moses has taken a step up. He's elevated himself. He earned himself a new contract. But now oh man, I just got your message, Alex. But now that you see Morgan Moses regressing, you're kind of concerned about both players because you don't really have a replacement right now for Morgan Moses. And like with both players, well, Jerron being a swing tackle is why I'm comparing these two. But Jerron being a swing tackle, then that's a problem in itself because you don't have any help.
Yeah. I mean, it's a guy. Look, obviously, we hope he succeeds. I just don't think that there's a reasonable basis to assume at this point. Not assume. I don't think there's a reasonable basis to expect that he's going to be a valid starting option at this point in his career. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Hopefully, maybe he'll defy expectations. Let's hope. We're Jerron Christian fans here in that regard. But I mean, is that going to happen? Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, I know the odds are against it, and really what I'm hoping for is he can develop to at least just stay the backup in the end. I think that's, we need at least a third tackle. We all know that, I need him to be able to at least come in for 4 games. That's all. 4 games. After that, I don't care.
So I don't know what else to say about John Christian. That's John Christian.
Yeah, that it.
Morgan Moses, obviously, this is probably the $1 million question on the offensive line, other than Sadiq Charles' maturity.
Actually, there's a lot of $1 million questions on this line.
Yeah, they're all $1 million questions, actually. Yeah. It's probably a bad way to say it. Clearly about, the past 2 years at least, Morgan has not lived up to his contract. Mm-hmm. He's played hurt. He's got a ton of penalties, all of that. That having been said, somebody present me a better starting option at right tackle.
Right.
Somebody, please. And if you say, before you say Cornelius Lucas, which might be true, number one, we haven't seen him play at all. There's a reason Cornelius Lucas was available in the first place.
Right.
And we don't know if he's going to have to start at left tackle.
Yeah.
So somebody present to me a better right tackle option than Morgan Moses. I don't think it's on the team. At least not that we can expect. He's got a huge contract. His cap hit's $8.65 million in 2020. It's huge. It's $9.65 million next year in 2021. It's a lot of money for a guy who hasn't lived up to it. He probably had 2 real years, I'd say, since he came to the team in 2014, where he's really looked good. Beyond that,
15, 16, he was good.
Right.
17, he was okay, and then he's been sliding back in 18, 19.
That's exactly right. But again, I don't know what else you're gonna. Well, what are you gonna do?
Right.
Who else is gonna play? You gonna throw Tim and Paris out there? Maybe.
Maybe.
But I doubt it. You can't expect that.
It's so right tackle. I feel like for most teams is such a gamble of a position. You never seem to. How many right tackles, are like the John Jansen that's there for 10 years and is a great bookend? You don't see it that often. No. Teams just don't find that guy. I think a lot of coaching staffs kind of look at right tackle as the least valuable spot on the offensive line.
I don't know about that. I mean, they play a big role in the run game.
Yeah, but at some point you have to say, I don't care about this guard or this. You can't have 5 stars like we did back in the 80s anymore. So,
well, yeah, I mean, the Hogs are gone. For sure.
But that philosophy is.
Should we dare test Jamal's microphone here?
I'm nervous.
Yeah, I think he's good now. No, you're good now. You're good now.
All right.
Every time around 43 minutes in, your microphone just does that.
Yeah, I tried to hurry up my point earlier with Jerron and Morgan so I could shut up before things got worse.
It's all right.
But,
we'll clean it up.
All right, cool. I don't think it was bad.
Listen to your own track, after you edit it.
All right.
Or after you, yeah.
All right. I'll take a listen. All right, continue, guys.
Well, Morgan Moses. I was wanting your opinion on Morgan Moses, Jamal. That's why I brought you up.
Well, okay. it's rough because the thing concerning Morgan Moses, and I hate using this as an excuse, but it also, I'm sorry, it's not an excuse, but it also points to the fact that he's kind of hard to count on anymore. Is the injuries, and then on top of that, when you start him and he's playing hurt, that kind of shows you don't really have a backup in place to help him out. You did have Ty Nsekhe for a little bit. You had him for a couple years before he moved on to Buffalo. And that was a guy that was reliable. You can count on him to give Morgan Moses the needed rest. And that probably helped out tremendously. But now you're dealing with a guy who is a warrior. He's playing hurt. But whether he's injured or if he's healthy, his play has significantly declined. There's nobody who can say that it hasn't, because when you're a person who is, I don't know the actual statistic, but I'm pretty sure if he's not number one, he's number two or he's number three, leading the NFL at the offensive line position in penalties. It's ridiculous. I think it's false starts and holdings. I'm not completely sure. It's one or the other, if not both. But he's up there in penalties generally. That's the sign of a person who's just not generally technically sound, or just a person who lapses a lot of awareness. It's impossible to just keep having all these false starts and stuff like that, and also holding your opponent or the defender. So I only say this to say I'm very concerned about the right tackle position. I don't know where Morgan Moses' future lies as a Redskin, and I also don't know where his immediate future lies as a starting right tackle. But that also goes to show I don't know who's going to back him up. I don't know who's going to take his spot. Cornelius Lucas, we talked about him already, but does that mean he's going to play? If he can play to a decent level, a serviceable level, then maybe you got something there. But you got to see a lot from Morgan Moses to really say that he's somebody you can count on this year. You really only have Brandon Sheriff. You have
Chase.
Yeah, Chase. That's what I was thinking of. And then, that's it. Yeah, I'm about to say
every other position is open. Only 2 of our 5 line spots are really settled.
At one point, it was
in
4.
hindsight,
he was dealing with Sean Laval as the fifth man who was always inconsistent / hurt. You had 4 people you could really count on. Now you're down to 2. You're down to 2.
It's a serious problem. Maybe in hindsight, the Redskins should have kept Ty Nsekhe and cut Morgan.
Ooh, that would have been
water
bold.
under the bridge. It's water under the bridge now, but maybe in hindsight, that's what should have happened.
Yeah,
but you guys are right. Because did we didn't already do our guards position group breakdown? I don't think, but
no.
I can't remember. Did we?
I don't think so.
Yeah, but you guys are right. It used to be 4, now it's 2, and even then, even Brandon Scherf is not signed beyond this year.
Right. Now we keep hearing the team's going to do it, but
Yeah. So from a long-term future perspective, Sadiq Charles, we're all hoping and praying, because we've all heard that he was kind of he was a better talent than a 4th-round talent. We don't really know. We haven't seen him set foot on an NFL field. We don't know.
No. I feel good about him. And, at the very least, what I'm looking at when I see Sadiq Charles is, okay, if he doesn't work out at left tackle, switch him to right tackle and see if he can be Moses' replacement long term.
Some people think he's a guard.
Yeah.
There's a small minority of people out there who think he's a guard. I don't know. It's mainly because of his arm length that they're saying that, but it's not. His arms are not that short. And again, Joe Thomas had his same arm length. Joe Thomas is in the Hall of Fame.
You can make up for the arm length with better footwork and with better, hand placement.
I'm not trying to compare him to Joe Thomas. I'm just saying that it's not an automatic disqualification.
I think, in all our conversations over the years we've had with Robbie and other guys who've played line, hand placement and footwork are so much more important than anything else. Yep. If he can master those at the NFL level, then he'll be fine.
So what do we think? I guess the $1 million. I keep saying that. I got to get away from that.
You got to find a new catchphrase.
A new catchphrase. Yeah. So what do we think is going to happen for this line, both in 2020 and going forward? I guess that's the question.
All right. Group. So I got a bold prediction right now.
Yeah. Go ahead.
we will see somebody starting on this line by the end of the year who's not on this roster at this point.
That happens every year.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm sorry. At tackle, like I think Moses will get hurt bad enough where he'll be done. Christian probably won't work out, and we'll be bringing in somebody who's like,
the
one
next
of these
Austin
various
Howard.
35-year-old guys who's just sitting at home.
I mean, it's still possible, I guess, that they could sign Jason Peters. He's still not signed.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that at all. I mean, and who's the guy from last year?
We're talking about Donald Penn.
Yeah, Donald Penn. I mean, it's not beyond the realm of possible that they bring one of those two guys in.
I hope not.
What I've heard is that Peters wants to go to a contender, which
Yeah.
obviously isn't the Redskins. Donald Penn is like 1,000,000 years old. I don't think either one of those are great. And Peters is old and has been hurt a lot.
Yeah, Peters
too,
is
so
older than Penn by like a year.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think either one of those are great options.
Yeah.
If they were great options, they would have already done it.
Right.
Those are the emergency backup options. So I think here's the ideal. To sum up my thoughts, the ideal is Sadiq Charles is ready day one. He's your left tackle starter. At that point, then you can move Cornelius Lucas to right tackle, and then just get rid of Morgan Moses. His dead cap hit is fairly low, $3.8 million. So you could get rid of him and save a little under $5 million. But it all hinges on Sadiq Charles. Sadiq Charles is not ready. Cornelius Lucas most likely needs to play left tackle. Then Morgan plays right tackle. That's my thoughts.
I think that you're probably onto something there. I don't see them getting rid of Moses. I could see him being designated into the backup role. But, if he's only coming in when somebody gets hurt, I think you've got a better chance of Moses not underperforming like he was. I think that a lot of what we've seen in his decline started with his... what was it, 2018, where he had fractures in both legs and still had to play or something?
Yeah, I believe so.
If it wasn't 18, it was 17. Either one.
He was playing on two busted legs and was falling down after every play and had to be helped back up. But we had no other options, and he hasn't been right since then. So
there's no doubt he's been a warrior in terms of injuries.
Yeah, but
just the penalties, it's got to stop.
But I think the penalties stem from the fact that he's just not been healthy. When you can't move right, you're going to hold more and stuff like that. So.
I should have asked him the day I saw him in the Leesburg coffee shop. I should have cornered him and asked him all this stuff.
Yeah, right. That's what he wants to do when he's getting his Starbucks.
The funny thing about that is the people I was sitting with all said, "Yeah, to go try to interview him." I was like, "You realize the man's just trying to get coffee, right?"
Right.
And he doesn't know me at all.
Right.
From Adam, probably he's never heard of our site either. So
no, I doubt it. Yeah, but I don't know. I'm just going to play conservative. Say Charles, Christian, and Moses are locked to make the roster, and then Lucas or Paris, I guess, is that fourth guy who maybe ends up having to start at right tackle because Moses will fall apart.
I just got a text from Mr. Adams that says, "Stop disrespecting my son."
Oh man! Look, I can't. Can you actually repeat that, Alex? I thought I may have misheard you. In terms of your prediction.
Oh, four guys make it: Moses, Charles, Christian, and then I'm between Lucas and Paris for that fourth spot.
Oh, all right. Yeah, we're in the same boat. But I kind of obviously think the guy that they brought in, the free agent, is probably going to get the nod over Timon Paris. My guess, but it doesn't really matter. We need help. We need somebody to step up, or we need at least Morgan Moses to return to 2015 through 2017 form. We need that.
Because they really need a line that's going to be able to allow Dwayne Haskins to develop.
Yeah.
That's the important thing is you have to have a decent line because what you don't want is him be under armed assault every single play.
You don't want another Patrick Ramsey situation.
Exactly.
And you don't want people misunderstanding the actual type of quarterback that he is, because if he's always under duress, you're not going to be able to consistently see the type of quarterback that Haskins can be. You don't want no quarterback, no young quarterback, keep getting hit and stuff like that, mess with his psyche. Hopefully he's mentally strong. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you get hit too much, you're going to start changing the way you play.
I think David Carr still has PTSD from the 76 sacks he took as a rookie.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah,
Because I like this game for the most part, but you can't overcome something like that. It's hard to.
I mean, David Carr still holds the record for the most sacks in a single season.
It's crazy, and it ruined his career.
Yeah.
And so what you don't want is to have a starting offensive line that it looks like the Redskins might have, and just absolutely ruin a first-round draft pick quarterback.
Right. And I believe it's 73 sacks. It's either 72. It's in the 70s.
I think it's
76?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's in the 70s. Yeah, we've seen that before here, too, like I said, with Patrick Ramsey. Don't want that. All right, last topic that we have on here, and we thought we'd get to this at the end. Roger Goodell put out his statement about all the Black Lives Matter protests and everything that's going on in the country. Basically, to sum up the minute and a half or so, he said he thought the NFL now, in hindsight, was wrong for ignoring players' complaints about police brutality a couple years ago. I assume he doesn't say the Kaepernick situation, but we all kind of figure that's what he's talking about at that point. I'll just say I think good for him for kind of saying that they were in the wrong. I don't think that's easy for anybody to ever admit that they're wrong. That's not in human nature, especially if you're a guy who makes $50 million a year being an executive. So I'll give him credit for, kind of admitting that they were in the wrong.
Yeah, I'll follow up. I kind of had a few things to say about that because I agree. I give him credit. I was actually surprised that they didn't take as much time as I anticipated that they would, or maybe I didn't know if they would or wouldn't acknowledge what the NFL players were requesting, because the NFL players did make a video as well, and that's what that's what Roger Goodell was really responding to.
They did. I didn't see the NFL
the
players.
NFL players, a few of them. I don't know how many it was per se, but it was quite a few who did like a collective video, just essentially saying that we need the NFL to acknowledge their wrongdoings. But it was all within a day in terms of how, the time frame in which Goodell responded. So I was kind of surprised that he responded so quickly. And it was a start. And somebody pointed this out to me. I'll get to it after I say this part. I feel like what they should have did, because they know where it started, and publicly acknowledging that they did Colin Kaepernick wrong would have been the end all be all. Like, that's great. But somebody also mentioned lawsuits or something like that may get in the way of them actually acknowledging that, or something like, I don't know in particulars, but that may be the case that, because there are lawsuits going on, or that there went on, they probably just couldn't mention him in particular. I don't know. But I'll just leave that out there because it may be a possibility. So yeah, I give him credit because I wasn't anticipating them to do it as quickly, but also it would have been good if they could mention the person who initiated the conversation in the NFL, because he was the one who hasn't gotten a job since his contract was terminated with the 49ers.
It's not going to surprise anybody, neither Alex nor Jamal nor anybody listening, that I have an opposite view of this than anybody. And first of all, just from a background perspective, my understanding is that video, Roger Goodell kind of went rogue just a little bit and didn't really tell anybody but a handful, like a very small handful of owners, that he was going to do that. So he surprised most of the owners in the NFL by putting that video out. But be that as it may, I think there's a big difference to me in acknowledging the views and demands of players and openly sanctioning disrespect of the national anthem. That's something I will never, ever get behind. I fully support Drew Brees' original statement in that regard. I don't think he did anything wrong. I would have said something similar to what Brees said. I can't get behind that in any way, and I'm not going to get behind that in any way. I boycotted the NFL for 6 months other than the Redskins back when all that was going on. I will do so again if it comes up this season. I fully support the idea of players being concerned about police brutality which is the underlying cause of all this. I think there is a conversation to be had there with that. That having been said, I think Colin Kaepernick is a hypocrite. I think he did everything to himself. I think Colin Kaepernick is all about Colin Kaepernick. I think he's indisputably made that known or demonstrated that from day one. I think the NFL can do a better job of listening to its players, but I will never agree to this kneeling in the national anthem thing. It's deeply offensive to me, and I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to watch it.
Well,
and we'll see what that means going forward in terms of the season.
Well, see, and the thing that got Drew Brees in trouble, rightfully so, is the fact that he failed to disassociate the difference between what the national anthem was doing and what the protest was doing. And that's what got him in trouble, because when they specifically asked him a question about what was going on in the world today and what was going on with what the players were doing in the past, kneeling, he brought up the national anthem. He brought up what people were doing in terms of veterans in the U.S. combat veterans in the past and present. He brought that up on his own merit. He initiated the whole conversation, and it was a complete sidebar from what the actual issue was. He failed to disassociate it, and he made himself look stupid. He earned every right of criticism that went his way. And everybody who continues to do that is obviously they fail to understand the whole purpose of the entire conversation, because they refuse to separate the two issues, and that's what gets everybody in trouble, and that's what gets everybody believing that a particular person who says things like that are either racist or either ignorant. They're completely ignorant.
I mean, I think I have a pretty darn good understanding of not what African Americans have lived through. I'm white, but I think I have a pretty good understanding of the issues involved here. I had no problem with what Drew Brees said. I think what Drew Brees was saying to me was, "This is what the national anthem means to me." When I hear it,
but that's not what he was asked. He wasn't asked about.
He was asked about the protest, not.
He wasn't asked about the national anthem.
I think when he took his comments in totality, and I watched it, I just didn't get the same. I guess I just viewed the question and his response differently than you did, Jamal.
Because you you did the same thing that Drew did. You did the same thing that Drew did.
I stand up for my position, though. The national anthem means something very specific to me. I have buried colleagues of mine in the military who were killed, and I can't ever get behind anybody disrespecting it. I just can't. I don't want to criticize.
So what did he disrespect about the national anthem? Let us know. I mean, we're having an open conversation here, and I'm fine with that. Yeah. So let us know how he disrespected the national anthem by kneeling about police brutality. What did he disrespect about the national anthem?
When the national anthem is being played and the flag is being presented, you must stand out of respect for it. It's the kneeling part in particular that is offensive to me. And that's what I think what Drew Brees was saying was, I think he was acknowledging his family member, I think it was family members, who fought in World War II and other, I forget what he said. I think it was World War II.
He said his grandfather who fought in World War II.
Yeah, grandfather.
The one person
right. But there was another person he mentioned in his comments. So I'm perfectly fine to have a conversation about police brutality, and I understand those issues as much as I can about it. But the idea of kneeling during the national anthem in particular is deeply offensive to me, because it is an open disrespect of the flag. And I just said, what I think about when I hear the national anthem is what I already said. So
if you agree with Drew Brees' original statement, so what would you say about the individuals who are, say, if I had ancestors who fought in World War II, say if I had those same people, they fought in World War II, and they came back to a country that didn't respect them, versus Drew Brees' ancestors who had who did the same thing that my ancestors did fighting in World War II, but he came back to a different America, while my ancestors came back to a different America. What does that say for the same situations in terms of what they fought for, and they came back to different greetings and different in a different environment. I'll put it that way. So what do you say about those people who, they see different Americas? Like, you can't really, you can, but you can't really say that you agree with them, but you also point out the fact that the people who fought in the war, they were treated the same way because they weren't.
I'm saying that I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do.
Yeah.
If you want to kneel or whatever, kneel. I'm saying that I'm personally offended by it for those reasons, and I'm not going to watch it. That's what I'm saying. I mean, Colin Kaepernick or whoever, do you do you, and everybody has a different view of it. And in terms of your specific question, Jamal, I mean, I understand what you're saying. What you're saying is that there are African American. I think what you're saying is there are African American people in this country who have fought for the country, dating all the way back to the Revolutionary War. And they have come back to an America that is treating them differently. There's no doubt about that. I'm just saying that I can't get behind a protest that disrespects the flag. I mean, they're entitled to do whatever they want to do, and I will sit down with each one of them and talk to them about it. But I'm just not going to watch a league that sanctions disrespect of the flag.
See, I think the issue here is that because you just spoke on it, you said you're open to sitting down and talking to people, but I don't think you're open. I don't think you're open to changing your opinion, and that's where the failure is going to be before you even sit down and talk with them. Because you don't like if you're going to sit here and you told us that you'll forever feel a certain type of way, then the conversation is already null and void. And I guess that's
the point of the protest, though, to engender a conversation. Isn't that the point of it? I mean, the point isn't.
The conversation is more than conversation now. At this point, we're trying to make people are trying to make changes out here. Conversation obviously does help initiate change, but it doesn't matter if the person or even people, it could be on both sides. But it doesn't matter if people don't understand the purpose of it initially, and they're not open or welcome to change. Because, truth be told, it's when you talk about, I really don't know what else. I really don't know what else to tell you, because if you can't disassociate the two different meanings, like you can have a feeling about the national anthem, and you can also feel a type of way about the America that we live in, the United States that we live in. You can feel a type of way, and if you have that type of platform at NFL level, then you have a way to protest, and you have a way to raise awareness. When people say during the national, in the past, because they rarely show it anymore. But when people say, why is this person kneeling, or they ask the question, or why is this person sitting down in the stands, they know why they're doing it. But if you choose to say he's disrespecting the flag versus he feels a type of way about America, then I mean that just shows where you're at. That just shows where your head's at, and people really just can't overcome the fact that people feel a type of way about how minorities and specifically blacks are treated in the United States. People just can't come to grips with that.
Why is it not okay for me to be offended by what I view as a disrespect of the flag?
Well, you can be offended by whatever you want, Steve. I've been offended by 1,000 things that go on at sporting events. And you know what I do? I suck it up, because that's America. You suck. If you are offended, you have a right to be offended. You don't have the right to just think that means they have to stop something.
Yeah, it does. Of course it does. I can think whatever I want, just like you can.
There's a peaceful protest going on, and people. I mean, that was a form of peaceful protest 4 years ago. I think it started in 2016. Now I can't remember.
Yeah,
but
4 years. Yes,
4 years ago, a peaceful protest started. He was minding his business. Somebody asked him a question after a practice. He spoke on it, on why he was doing what he was doing, and all of a sudden it took off. A peaceful protest, minding his business, and then 4 years later, we've moved on from peaceful protests. I'm talking about the country now. We've moved on from peaceful protests to riots and looting. And we're not going to dive into politics here. I know that's what we tried to avoid, but we're talking about riots and looting, and it went from peaceful protests to people complaining about the type of protest that's going on now. Well, we specifically brought up a person who was peacefully protesting. We specifically did that for an NFL organization, a private organization who can do whatever they want, essentially within their own policies and league rules. And basically, that person who was peacefully protesting, all of a sudden, when he got cut from the team that he was drafted by and got a contract extension by, he couldn't find another job. And people went to, he wasn't good. People went to, if he was good enough, he'll earn a contract. Well, if that was the case, he's only 30 years old when he was cut. Only 30. So that kind of shows you where the league was at. that kind of shows you their wrongdoings because they robbed him of 3 or 4 years of playing potential, and then gave him I'm not gonna go down the type of tryout, but they robbed him of 3 or 4 years of playing because they didn't want him to get on the team because it was going to be too much media trouble.
I think the only one who needs to blame is Colin Kaepernick himself. Colin Kaepernick did all this to himself,
and he stood up. He stood up for what he felt was right. That's the reason why he minded his business.
But a lot of what he's doing is completely hypocritical, and I you know what, I just don't. This is why I didn't want to do this topic. I don't mind having a conversation about it, but I really just didn't want to get everybody in. You know, it was supposed to be a Redskins show, but I'm happy to talk about it if you guys want to. But
no,
I think Colin Kaepernick is the worst spokesman for this issue that the NFL could possibly get.
Well, he's widely beloved by most of the country at this point, and so you're going to have to deal with that.
Most of the country, I disagree with.
I mean, he was proven right. I put it out there. He was proven right. He started something 4 years ago, and something happened 4 years later. After all the things that we've been through police brutality versus unarmed black people, years, all the counts. I told a friend yesterday, I can't even count or remember all the instances that have occurred since then. But my point is, he did what he did in 2016, taking the knee, a peaceful protest against the flag itself and what it stood for. He did that, and then 4 years later, riots start, and then the NFL league apologizes to the players, and then all of a sudden, the person who started the protest is sitting there like, "Okay, I told you so. Okay, thank you, acknowledge me." But you're not gonna get there.
I just completely disagree.
All right, I'll leave it at that.
I don't want to get in a big argument with you, but I mean, yeah, I completely.
So this is on the air, so that's fine. Everybody had their opinion now.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I mean, I'm not afraid to say my opinion, and that is what it is.
Okay, well, that should wrap up this week's episode.
This is why I didn't want to do this topic.
Well, I'm fine with it. And Jamal, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I do.
Okay.
When I talk about these things, I acknowledge that I'm not the most articulate person to discuss these things. That's why I really, when these type of things come up, I retweet and I share more than I talk because I can't really. I wish I was a person who can articulate things better, but I'm perfectly fine. I do hope that people who was listening to this understood where I was coming from. And obviously understood where Steve was coming from, so they can understand what we both were trying to say. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm perfectly fine as long as my message got across fine.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I have no issue with Jamal. Hopefully, Jamal has no issue with me. I mean, the point here is that rational, decent conversation can be had, without everybody getting mad at each other and screaming at each other, which tends to happen on social media a lot. But what's better for everybody is to have, people sit down and have reasonable conversations.
I think
is a start.
You get a lot of internet tough guyism on social media, and I think
this is a topic that's way bigger, by the way, than the hog sty. I mean, we didn't get into a million other issues we could have.
It's bigger than football. We're talking.
Really, this topic is not a football topic, and the totality of it. The Roger Goodell video, absolutely. The Colin Kaepernick, yes. The whole issue in itself is much bigger than the
right. And players on the Redskins have all been very outspoken. I think if any player you follow, they've said something. At least if you do that kind of thing, follow guys on Twitter. I've seen at least 20 Redskins players who've spoken out. So. It is something I think you are going to see more protests, though, Steve. So you're going to probably boycott again.
Probably.
Yep.
Yeah, probably so.
And you might have to boycott the Redskins because, from what I hear, they're all going to kneel.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about that off the air.
Yeah.
There's no reason to say anything right now. It's only June.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's going to take us to the end of this show. Ending on a kind of dark note there. I hope all you take care of yourselves out there. Stay safe. Try not to get in too much trouble or get tear gassed or shot by a rubber bullet or anything fun and crazy that the cops seem to be doing to everybody. So, take care out there.